Okay, my presentation would be a short overview of a SOSHI tool and approaches, and as well as a quick update on where we are in improving the initial tool. And now we are about to release what we call the digital SOSHI to make it more user-friendly and improve some of the features of the tool. I think to begin with, I would say a few words on the two words, continuous and improvement. Continuous means doing things over time. And it's not the one-shot intervention. It's a long process of improving the way we do business. It requires a fully dedicated personnel to achieve our goal, and it's required also a high-level commitment of the senior management. You will understand when I will come later on. The second one is improvement. Improvement means or implies tomorrow will be better than today. So it's progress over time. And in that regard, unless you measure what you do, you are not able to ascertain improvement. So a measurement system needs to be in place. And that's why we are using the SOSHI as a framework tool for measurement for not only the Shishu project as a global project, but also at the country level to track progress over time as we move on. And in that regard, I think the first thing to know is to know where we are. So setting baseline is necessary. The SOSHI would help set a baseline. And also we need to know when we know where we stand, we need to know where we are going. So we need to set realistic goal, achievable, and in a reasonable time frame. The Japanese call continuous improvement change for better, because change might mean improvement, might mean relapse. So it's change for better, assuming that tomorrow will be better than today. So you see what I'm showing here. This is a continuous improvement over time. Is not a one-shot intervention. Having said that, I would come to the SOSHI tool assessment toolkit, which has the user guide and the assessment sheet. The SOSHI toolkit serves the following purpose. Number one, it has established a baseline for measurement in the sense that it helps us assess the strength and the weaknesses of all the domain component and subcomponent. Where we know where we are, it facilitates setting realistic goals for an HIS to progress. And also, with all those information in hand, we are fully informed to develop a realistic improvement plan to move to the desired status toward a strong HIS. The SOSHI user guide is a practical reference for anyone who is interested in implementing the SOSHI. Is a step-by-step instruction on how to implement it from initial stakeholder engagement through the dissemination of the result. And you will see in a few weeks in a digital version of the tool, a revised and improved user guide that provide a lot of insight to the user to do a proper SOSI assessment. The audience, of course, is HIS people, M&E people, officers, and leaders who are interested in knowing where they are and how they can plan for improvement. In terms of methodology, the first thing to do is establishing a leadership team with key stakeholders. Could be people from the ministry, could be implementing partners or other agencies at the country level. people need to be oriented on to have a common understanding of the tool and to lead the process as we move. And we need to seek approval and buy-in from the ministry and have an agreement on which component of the HIS is being assessed. It could be the overall HIS, it could be also the routine health information system, or a subsystem of health programs. In order to do so, we need to know where we are. So identification and gathering of reference document for a desk review is quite necessary and a must. Making sure that the right people are involved. I'm talking, when I say right people, the key HIS stakeholder needs to be involved. Subject matter expert needs to be identified and enrolled in that process. And the desk review will take place using the resources we have identified previously, and conduct an externally facilitated stakeholder meetings to make sure that a small group are working on specific domain to come up with a consensus on where the country stands, assuming that the consensus is based on evidence, not on a rational thinking. That assessment will help provide the score for the different component to identify strengths and weaknesses and try to develop an action plan. As you know, when you do such an activities, you come up with a long list of possible interventions. Not everything can be done for many reasons. Sometimes we don't have the resources, sometimes the time is limited, and we need a lot of staff to do so many things. So prioritization is the key. I will come up to that later on my presentation as well. The next slide is just summarizing what I just said. The step would go from setting a leadership team to planning for future improvement. Going through these steps that I just outlined. You will see them, it's self-explanatory. I won't spend time on those. The next slide is pointing out the stages of continuous improvement. The tool is proposing 5 stages, ranging from emerging to optimize, going through repeatable, define, and manage. I will come into this and in the next slide. Just to summarize here, sum up is SOSHI help us to measure the HIS status at a given time. When we know that we are in a position to set realistic goal for future HIS. To do that, we have to identify the HIS gaps and strength, and from that, plan for a roadmap for improvement. Basically, we have 5 core domains. You have leadership and governance, management and workforce, ICT infrastructure, standard and interoperability, data quality and use. These 5 domains are broken down into component, 13 components, I believe. You can read them for yourself, and 39 subcomponents. You have to remember that the assessment is focused on the subcomponent. When the subcomponents are assessed, the system will auto-generate an average score for the component, and from the component average score, the system will generate a score for the domain. So the main attention should be focused on the subcomponent. When they are really scored, everything else is auto-populated. To make it clear for people, I think there is a generic definition of the stage of continuous improvement. And I highlighted the most important part. Emerging means things are at the development stage, quite limited, the scope is quite limited, and success depends on individual effort, not on collective approach. Repeatable means basic processes are in place, and standard processes and functional capabilities are known and effort to document the processes are underway. But really, one step further from the development stage, early development stage. Define means things are getting better, and guidelines and processes are approved, documented. I'm talking about documentation guidelines in relation to HIS project or activities. Knowledge sharing collaborations are increasing, and innovative methods are being used to extend the functional capabilities. When we reach the manage one, activities are under control using established processes, requirement and processes are in place, and detailed measures for process are collected. The optimize is a type of maintenance issues. We have progressed over time. We are at the optimal level. That means best practices are being applied. Capacity of learning and adaptation exists. Experience and feedback are in place and to improve the process. And we are anticipating, we are not waiting to be surprised. The system is quite ready to react in any threat coming from outside. And processes also are in place to ensure that relevant innovation are being incorporated. These are really generic definitions just to set the stage in terms of the 5 stages of continuous improvement. When it's come to subcomponent, there is a refined definition. I just picked one as an example. If you take the strategic plan, you will see that the definition of the stage are refined and tailored to the subcomponent. Here, the stage 1 would mean that we are at the early stage, is focused on small or short term, and without an overreaching strategy. If you move to the next step, you will see that now subject matter experts are involved, but it's still focused on few topics. It's not including all the relevant activities. If you move to the stage 3, the plan is including all the components, the processes are in place, all stakeholders are involved, it's aligned with the health sector strategic plan, is formally approved by the Ministry of Health. The next stage is stage 3 plus costed approach. It's costed, regularly monitored and updated for corrective actions. When you come to stage 5, it's already costed, aligned with the ministry, but we are doing a continuous improvement to maintain the system, making sure it's being responsive to the changing of health needs and priorities to reflect the health sector plan and the mini plan. So you see, for every single subcomponent, you have a specific definition of each stage. You have to stick on those when you do the assessment and make sure you have the evidence to support your scoring. Just to sum up on the SOSHI one, I would say SOSHI must be conducted through a collaborative and transparent process. If we fail to do it in a collaborative and transparent way, we are preparing to fail. In that regard, involvement of all relevant key stakeholders and an early engagement of the leadership team is critical for a successful assessment. Number 3, scoring must be done through a consensus building, leaning out of on evidence-based, not on rational thinking. You need to have the evidence to support your scoring. If you don't have the evidence, the score is not supported, so it will be disregarded. And finally, you need to keep in mind, SOSHI is not only a planning tool, it's also a management tool, as well as a monitoring tool. We can use it to plan, to track progress over time, and at some point in time to see where we are after a certain time. So it's an evaluation tool as well. It helps identify the strengths, weaknesses, set baseline, and set realistic target, develop a roadmap and track progress over time in achieving our ultimate goal. Having said that, I will move to the overview of the digital tool. As you know, up to now, we are using a Excel base, which is quite nice, but we realize that we are in a position to improve it. So we built on existing initiative, the measure evaluation project developed previously a digital tool on DHIS2, but it has never been tested nor implemented. And we found also that the visualization was lacking for the subcomponent, which was the foundation of the assessment. So we attempted to finalize it, but for some reason, we ended up picking a Drupal platform rather than the DHIS2. So I will tell you this quickly, some improvement that we made. The layout, an example of few features of the digital tool, provide a list of the complete package and tell you in one slide on the upcoming task and the potential implication on project implementation. It will be quick, don't worry. In terms of improvement, the first thing target was to improve the visualization. Now we have visual for the subcomponent. We also added the gender table analysis. As you know, in everything we do, gender consideration is essential. It's a cross-cutting issue. We identify the key places where gender is approached on the source tool, and we develop a table that will automatically populate it when you do your assessment. You will see.
Alimou?
Yes.
Sorry, this information, it's under 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. There is a gender table to give you where you are and put you in a position to address the gender gap. We formalize the prioritization. Prioritization is essential, otherwise the planning process won't be effective. We improve seriously the user guide, which is combined within the tool, but we have a separate deliverable. We suppress the average score because they are misleading, because people keep sticking on the average rather than building the consensus. And we also added a multi-step consensus building approach to solidify the initial consensus building with small group. And also we ease the use, and we have a potential of documentation of previous assessment. These are just a few layout of the tool. This is the enrollment on the tool. This is the hub of the assessment. You have a domain here to do the self-assessment, the consensus building, and the link for assembling the improvement roadmap. These are some examples of dashboard from the subcomponent where you could attach the evidence to support your scoring. We have also a way of doing a drill down. Let's say, for instance, you have subcomponent here. If you click on this one, it will give you the detail on this component. You have them here, if you like something like that. Same thing here. If you click on this blue, you will get a broken down result for the subcomponent. This is the gender table. You see the score 17%. That means for that specific assessment, HIS training is a gap. Aggregated data exchange has a gap. Data synthesis has a gap. And reporting analytic features has a gap. So in planning, they need to make sure these gaps are being filled as well. This is just a summary of steps. This is the roadmap improvement, and prioritization is key, as I said. First, you need to prioritize within each HIS domain, and second, you have to prioritize across HIS core domains. These are the matrix of prioritization we are providing to help guide the user to do a good prioritization. These are matrix of prioritization, and these are the package. We have a digital tool, which will be live at the end of September. We have a combined user guide embedded into the platform. We have a separate user guide and facilitator guide. We are preparing an audio video for orientation, and we will be organizing in October at the latest a digital socio webinar to better inform people about the tool. And this is the long-term, we are trying to update the user guide on a regular basis. We are developing a distribution site to make sure country has the capability to use it in their own without relying on CISU. We are also updating the design or as CISU visual identity continue. We are also planning for comparison across multiple assessments. Thank you very much.